Okay, we're on Maasrot, Perek Aleph, Mishnah, Zayin. We're continuing to discuss when is something considered Hava'a Lagoren. When are different elements, different kinds of food considered brought into the Goren, stored or ready, such that you can no longer eat them arai. So arai means temporarily. And this is a continuation of the Mishnah before, as well as the Mishnah before that discussed Ezehu Garnan the Maasrot. Okay, when are perot considered kavua, and you can't eat them, v'asur le'echol mehem arai. So now we're continuing this Mishnah with yayin. Says the Mishnah, hayayin, wine is considered brought to the gorin. Mishe yekapeh. Mishe yekapeh means, look at the Bartanura, Mishe yasir hachartzanim v'hazagim shema'ale hayayin b'tocha bor shayayin b'shat v'tichato. Okay, there's a boar. I have a picture here. Okay. There's a boar that they would gather in, and I guess they would let it, I don't think they would boil it in this boar, but it would sort of sit in the heat, and then in that boar, at that time, all the sort of chaff, some of the larger chaff would rise to the top, and then they would skim that off the top. So when you removed it and you skim off the skins and the zagim, the skins and the chartzanim, the skins and the seeds that come in this boar when it sits there and it heats up. And the Mishnah says, after you did that, afa pishikipa. So by the way, it's a little unclear, like if it's talking about the bor shkia or the bor isuf. You probably think it's the bor shkia, the shkua, when it would first land. It would become sort of filtered there, and then it would drip back down into the bor isuf. So once it's in the bor isuf, it's ready to be collected. That's probably a gmar. That's probably considered gmar for the purpose of wine. Okay, nonetheless, afa pishikipa, even though you already skimmed it, kolet min hagat elyona umin hatzinor v'shoteh. Here you can see, now you can understand, there's a gat elyona, there's an upper gat, there's an upper vat, and then a tzinor, the flow and drink. So even though, so you have this is the gat elyona, you can still draw from the gat elyona, okay, or from the tzinor. So it's not clear to me which he's referring to. It's not clear also that every bor had 3 levels, 1, 2, 3. It could be some of them had 2. This is probably a more sophisticated gat. Nonetheless, the Mishnah says you can collect from the upper gat and from the flow. The tzinor is this flow of wine. From here, it's not considered the gmar, and you could drink at that time. Okay? Mishnah continues. Hashemen, what about in a wine press? So wine press is interesting, and there's different opinions. We're going to see some specific language. Hashemen, when does it become considered hava'a legoren for oil in a beit bad in an oil press? Mishe yered la'uka. When it falls down into the uka, says the Bartanur, uka is a gmar shelifnei beit habad. Gmar is a hole, an indentation, a ditch. Shashemen yered letocha, it's into the ditch. But afa pisha yarad, even though the oil has already flowed down, notel min ha'akal umi beit hamamal, umi bein hapatzim. Okay? You're allowed to take it from the akal, from the beit mamal, and bein hapatzim. What are those things? So there are different opinions about what they are. Okay, the problem is there's more than one kind of oil press, as we'll see. Akal, kli asui mechavalim, shetzovrim azeitim letocho. It's a vessel that was made from rope, from string, and they would gather the olives in it. Mechabdim akora alehem. Let's see if I find a picture that I think is the akal. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Right? So this is one kind of wine press. There are a few kinds of wine press. The first kind of wine press, you've seen this in archaeological pictures. These are these bags that they would fill. And there was a huge weight over here. They would connect a stone to a weight on a lever. And then they would put these bags under the fulcrum of this huge beam that they had. And it would squish them. And it would collect. Okay, and it would collect the wine, the oil would get squished down and fall into some kind of pit. Okay? So number 7 are the akalim. See here it says the akalim. Okay, they would put these bags in, and the akalim would then squish them, the weight would pull down, and it would squish the wine, the olives, the olive oil. So these number 7 are these bags that they would put them in. So after you're done squishing, there's still oil in there. Okay, so the oil flowed down. Nonetheless, even though there's oil in here, even though it was already pressed, the oil that's still in these bags afterwards is not considered gmar melachah, obviously. Okay, that is akal. Zeitim betocho, okay, mamal. Harechev elyon shetochanim bazeitim. Mamal is something totally different. It's a totally different type of olive press. Beipad, the mamal, remember we had in other kinds of olive presses, the animal pulled this around, right? The animal took it around, and on this rolling or wheel, and it would squish the olives. It would do a much finer job of squishing. That's called a memel, mamal memel. Okay, so if I find oil on the akal, mibein hamamal, mibein hapatzim are in the areas between Shem and Yosef, mibein and Nesarim. If oil comes between the beams, and all those areas, then you're allowed to note. You can take oil from there and eat it, because even though you've already squished it, it's not considered gmar melachah. Now, in addition, there's an interesting halacha that asks, what can I do with the food? Because the problem is the following. The halacha is that if I cook something, no matter, even if it's not gmar melachah, if I cook the oil, if I use it for cooking, that's gmar melachah, and therefore I'd have to take trumot Maasrot. So what can I use it for? So says the Mishnah, v'noten lechamita v'letamchoi. I can use this oil and put it in a chamita and a tamchoi. A chamita is let's look at the Bartanura because you'll see it in it. Okay? Hi ugadaka. It's a very thin cake. When they took it out of the oven, they would then smear it with oil. They would, add a little oil on top. It's not considered cooking. There's a very important rule, because fire, when I cook it, that's kavur l'maaser. So even if I took oil that was not kavur l'maaser, once I cook it, that's done. Then I have to vasur le'achol aray, and I can't eat aray from all those foods that were cooked. Okay, but the question is, if I take the oil and smear it on my chamita, can I eat the chamita without taking off trumot and maasrot? The answer is yes, because that's not considered cooking. The same thing is true of a tamchoi. Tamchoi is a kli sheni. The tamchoi, we're going to see this in the Mishnah in Hilchot Shabbat, the third parak in Shabbat. What's the tamchoi? So the tamchoi, think about it like a soup tureen. I took the soup off the fire, okay, and then I pour it into a second soup tureen that I bring to serve to the table. That's the tamchoi. So therefore I can put this oil on the chamita, on this bread, and also la tamchoi, in the kli sheni, in the soup tureen. Lefas is another way of saying ilfas. I can't put it in the pot, and the ilfas kashem rotchim, even after I took them off, the ilfas and the kedera are considered kli rishon. Okay, those are the pot that I took off the fire. Because even though I took it off the fire, the halacha is, as we'll see in Hilchot Shabbat, kli rishon is mevashel. I can't put it on there. Okay, lo yitein shemen la kedera or the ilfas when they're boiling. Why? Afal pi sheivira mina orvin. I took them off the fire. Calls man shayad, so let it bem chashuv kim mevashel. It's like I'm cooking the kaval maaser, and that's koveya for the purposes of maaser. Same thing is true for the halachot of Shabbat, as we'll soon see. I cannot take my soup pot off of the fire and add raw pepper, because it's going to be mevashel. It's kli rishon is mevashel. Rabbi Yehuda omer lakolu noten. Rabbi Yehuda says I can put it into everything. Chutz midavar sheyesh bo chometz v'tzir, except for something that has chometz, vinegar, and tzir is the fish brine, because he felt that they are considered real cooking, or they accelerate the process. Okay, because he says they are not kover for maaser. All the things, as long as it's not on the fire, are not kover for maaser, except for tzir, chometz tzir, shecharifato shel chometz v'tzir. Their sharpness misayeh levashel. It's unclear why Rabbi Yehuda felt that kli rishon shelo ha'esh is not mevashel, or it's not mevashel for the purposes of via the Maasrot. Nonetheless, the purpose, of course, being, the idea, of course, being the second part of the Mishnah, is that Eish is something, as soon as I cook something, even if the original thing that I got with the oil was from the Bein HaPasim, the oil that was, still in the bag, it was not Rayu L'Bishul, not Rayu L'Maaser, and I can eat it aray. Once I cook something, once I put it on the fire, then it's Hukva L'Maaser, and I can no longer eat it Achilat aray. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact me at arspolter@gmail.com. I will dedicate this learning to memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a good day.